Morning, everybody. I'm Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for 4702 Chevy Chase Drive. Your lead reviewer is Grace Bogdan, and the purpose of this meeting is to answer any questions you might have based upon the comments you received. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and I will turn it over to Grace to highlight any of the bigger things we should talk about, and then she'll turn it over to the applicant. So go ahead, Grace.
Good morning. So I just want to go over some of the items in the comments that I think are missing from the resubmittal that we want to discuss for the next submission. So first off, in the authorization letter that was included in the document folder, it would be great if that could be updated now to include authorization from the fire department site for improvements to the sidewalks and the tree plantings that are going to occur on the property. And we'd also like to discuss the location of the tree planting if possible today. The tree safe plan needs to be updated. This was a sketch plan condition to show the updated LOD. And so that relates to the location of the tree plantings on their property. And in terms of the public benefit points, at the time of sketch plan, you're proposing the vegetated wall, which we had a little concern about. And so that switched now to a vegetated roof. However, based on our requirements that state that the vegetated roof cannot be counted for areas that are being counted for stormwater management. I'm not sure if this is going to be able to get you 7 points, but either way, you need to demonstrate that. Lastly, the green roof calculation is off. It looks like at sketch plan, we had about 6,000 square feet calculated as the 35%, and now it's reduced. I think that's incorrect. And then lastly, the sketch plan did condition a loading management plan be submitted at the time of site plan. Now knowing that loading is not occurring on Nottingham Drive, we still need, at least at a minimum, an SOJ description describing how loading will be occurring on and off site for deliveries and trash and things like that. And that could just be a paragraph or two in the statement of justification. And also the truck turning templates are missing. And we did receive correspondence from the neighbors, which I forwarded to you last week. And so I will hold the schedule until then, but I did want to mention at a minimum that in regards to the schedule, with the planning board hearing being tentatively set for January 4th, this cannot proceed until county council has that discussion on the BOS density, which we are all aware of. So I will turn it over to the applicant.
So first of all, actually, thank you, everyone. Pat Harris. Grace, you just said something that caught my ear, which was, why would this be limited? I mean, we're still under the 32.4 million. So why would it be limited and couldn't go forward till the council discussed the soft cap that we reached?
So my understanding is that because it is a site plan that's taking more density away, like I believe that the discussion needs to happen now before more projects be approved.
So, hey, everybody, that's Elza Heisel, quite Chief Down County Planning. I think the discussions are happening, but we still have the zoning ordinance says 32.4 million square feet that the board has defined. So I think applicants should be aware of it, but it should in no way, create any delay in the reviews. So I think as long as Pat and her team are aware of it, I think we're good to go. You're not asking for 2 million square feet, are you?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Grace,
Well,
is that cool?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. That my ears perked up on that one. Thank you, Grace, for your list. That's helpful. The most important comment, and the one that was on top of our list, is this issue of the 35% green cover requirement that's in the design guidelines, and the issue of whether it can count toward, and maybe I may be misunderstanding it a little bit, whether it can count toward stormwater management, which I believe the answer to that is pretty clear that it can. We found a couple other projects in the area where stormwater and the 35% were one and the same. So am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, but what you're saying then is that, but it can't count, you can't get public benefit points unless you're providing more than the 35%?
So essentially, the zoning code is very clear that you cannot receive public benefit points for a requirement that's otherwise required. And so in the areas that you're showing for stormwater management, if they are one and the same for what you're showing as the vegetated roof, then that cannot be counted as points. There might be some way to get there because perhaps you're not using the total thickness for stormwater management and you're using some for the vegetated roof. But, typically without doing a very complicated math equation, you cannot use the same areas twice.
Okay, and so I actually had reviewed the zoning ordinance and the sector plan, et cetera, and I didn't see anything precluding it, but you're relying on the general language, that provision that says you can't get public benefit points for anything that you're otherwise required to do.
Yes.
Okay.
And I
We
continue
will-
that section if you'd like.
Okay, no, that's fine. I got it. We will then look into that. Tim, did you want to add anything on that one?
No, I think we're good. We just need to, it sounds like we need to just rectify what the roof area is to clear up I guess the change. So I think we're good there.
Okay. There was a comment about the sidewalk along Bradley and you wanted some kind of landscape buffer back a curb. We will do that where we can. There's going to be a couple pinch points just because of where the amount of right of way that we have there.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And then, we have been working closely with the fire department, but here's a question for you, only because of the bureaucracy of the fire department. We've been trying to get their attention about this revised letter of authorization and have been having a hard time getting in touch with them. And it occurred to me, and I've seen this on other projects, what would happen if the fire department, just for whatever reason, decided that they really love those trees along Bradley and didn't want the trees coming down?
Are you referring to Chevy Chase Drive?
Yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Because we can't have a condition that's dependent upon the actions of someone else, obviously. Would we end up just paying into the sidewalk fund and then you guys figure it out with the fire department, or how does that work?
Let's get back to you on that one, because I think that generally I'd like to avoid that scenario.
As would we.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. What I would like to pivot to is how can we help you get in touch with the fire department and get that authorization? But I appreciate the what if scenario, and we should give you some guidance on that.
Okay, well, we they've had a turnover there, and so that's
Okay.
been a little bit of a challenge, but we did meet with them or their director about a month and a half ago. So
Okay.
we're still working on that.
Hey, Pat, real quick on that item, Katie, just so that you're aware, and maybe you're already aware, and please tell me if you are, the real catch there that we're finding is that Maryland's DNR division will not issue a roadside tree permit without permission of an adjacent property owner. So every time that we're required to do a sidewalk that is not adjacent to our frontage, if that property owner doesn't consent to it, they won't issue that permit. And then I can't get Sam, who's sitting in the back there, to sign off on the right-of-way permit. So it's a
Right.
real conundrum, and we're running into that on some other projects as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we're putting that out there, that we almost need to come up with a mechanism that addresses that during the condition so that we don't have to come back for whatever entitlement amendment. So I don't know how we want to handle it. It's a bigger topic for another time perhaps, but are you guys aware of that down the line?
I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah,
actually,
that's
Katie-
helpful to know.
Yeah, there's a couple of folks. It was Emily Teitelbaum. I had contacted her about a project where we ran into that. So I do think that it may be, at the end of the day, a wording of the condition. So that it'll be dependent on how the condition's worded. So when we get to that stage of the process, we will be looking at that.
Yeah, I'm making note of that now, that we need to be thinking creatively about that language so that we can, get everything that we need, but give you cover.
Got it. Okay. Then another biggie was the mitigation trees within the storm drain easement. So on the east side of the property, we have a storm drain, which is a significant amount of that side yard that we have. And currently we have planted mitigation trees within there. And I know this has come up on other projects, but I'm not clear on why mitigation trees can't be planted in a storm drain easement. The reality is we have no other place to put them. So if we can't plant them there, we're going to have to do an offsite payment for the mitigation trees.
I had
And-
reached out to DOT about this and they confirmed that they don't allow trees to be planted within the easement areas.
And do you know the basis for that?
This is a peak. Sam, you want to respond? That's fine. I can respond. Yeah, we do not allow trees to be within the storm drain easement because trees grow and that will impede maintenance of our storm drain system. That's why we don't allow trees to be in the storm drain easement.
So, Atik, is it no trees or is it mitigation trees?
No trees.
So Atik, how do we rectify that with looking at a typical public road where we have curb, a green buffer and sidewalk, and we have public storm drain and street trees right there, and they coexist all the time. So I guess, I'm struggling with that correlation that we have street trees, which are fairly significant, and storm drain, and we do that on just about every subdivision project that we work on. So how do we rectify that?
Typically, storm drain are right behind the curb. And we have the entire roadways to maintain if necessary, and trees are sitting behind. But in this situation, the storm drain easement on private property, we don't have that space. So that's one of the reasons.
So in this case, and again, we can talk offline if we want to, we're going to have 10 feet from the storm drain to the easement. And if we plant those trees and provide 5 feet of buffer between the storm drain line and the trees, we have equal or better than we have in most of our situations along a public road.
The storm drain you're providing is 20 feet, and it depends on the size of the storm drain. You basically we have 10 feet of staging on one side. It depends on the width of your storm drain, how big is the storm drain pipe. You may not have that space versus on the roadway. We have the entire roadway to stage for maintenance. In this situation, you have only 20 feet of storm drain easement. That is not sufficient to plant trees.
So that entire 20-foot storm drain there is just going to be open grass area? I mean, is there I'm assuming shrubs can be planted on top. Yes, no?
Shrubs are fine. We don't have problem with shrubs, but trees, no.
So is the issue there that you guys don't want you don't want to have to replace the trees, or is it you don't want to deal with trees for maintenance? Because if it's a replacement issue, we could probably craft an agreement or something that would put the onus on, hey, if DOT has to come in and maintain them and we lose a tree, that we'll pay the $750 to $1,000 to put that tree back. So just looking for solutions to make it work. Obviously, the site's pretty tight. So.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, you said, Rebecca, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Atik. I mean, especially on private property. I mean, we just had a conversation like that you have to get approval from a resident for a tree in right of way to remove. So for me, I generally I agree with Atik, and I think that could be a problem. People will be like, "Oh, I don't want you to tear up my trees," or "You have to place them 3 to 1," or I mean, I just don't think it's a good idea. I think we have allowed smaller shrubs or something in the easements, but we really can't allow those trees because people they like them. They don't want them to go away, even if you have to maintain a storm drain easement.
Gotcha. So then are we able to pay a fee in lieu for the mitigation trees?
Well, this is Saquon Gatling, environmental reviewer for the plan. The tree safe plan was reviewed as a part of the exemption approval. So that would have to be coordinated with the reviewer as well, who approved the exemption. That's Dom. We can coordinate with Dom. But given that the trees are already off-site and you already have LOD extending off-site in the situation, I think it would be helpful to think creatively about this situation rather than just going directly to pavement at this point. Perhaps we can move the replacement trees more offset from the easement in line with where the tree is being removed today. On one of the tree save plans, you can see that the trees are scooted a bit closer to the property, the mitigation trees that is, whereas the tree being removed is a bit offset. So perhaps since we're already off-site and need to revise our tree save plan and exemption, we can move those trees a bit further. If not, we can continue to coordinate with both you, Dom, and the fire department to see what solution we can come to for these trees.
I mean, I think that's going to be difficult, but we will look into it. And I say that because, first of all, you're asking us to then further encroach upon the fire department's property, which I don't think that they're going to be interested in that. This is challenging for us, especially since those trees have been, even though we're at site plan now, I think those trees were shown on both the sketch plan and the project plan. I mean, I'm sorry, the sketch plan and the preliminary plan. So we're definitely going to need a follow-up meeting to discuss this. We'll take a look and see what potentially the options are, but there's just not, as you can see, there's not a lot of space there.
That's fair. And I know, Pat, this sort of like was in my mind when we were reviewing it. And I thought we had the same or similar discussion about where the trees could be planted in relation to the storm drain easement there. I just couldn't find anything in writing about it. But I know that this discussion had already been had, at least at a minimum.
I'll go back and look at my notes. I don't remember direction about those trees in the storm drain, but I'll look as well. But yeah, so we definitely need a follow up on this. This one's going to be challenging. There was a comment about clarification of the architectural, the south facade, the middle column. Someone said it read like a seam. You wanted it narrower. And I don't know if we can put up that facade, but and Luz is on the line. We want clarification on the comment, but because of the layout and where the balconies fall, it's really hard to slim that column up anymore.
Yeah, I think this was just like one more final articulation comment. As you recall, at the last DAP, they said that we really appreciate all of the progress that had been done on this design. But there was just one last thing about perhaps making it a 3-part on the rear that would be reviewed at the time of site plan. And so just when we were reviewing this, we see that this is really nicely articulated in the 3 parts. I think it's just the proportion of these widths in the middle looks very similar to the outside. And so that's why it's creating more of a seam. If it's too difficult to reduce in width, then that's fine. But that was just one final critique on this.
Okay, well, we'll take another look at it, but our initial look was that it was going to be difficult because of the balconies and some of the unit layout, but we'll take a look. Okay. We did receive the email. Thank you for forwarding the email from the neighbors. We actually had met with the condo board about a month ago, and so it looked to me and discussed those very issues that those neighbors, the comments that those neighbors brought up. So I have a feeling that maybe they weren't informed by their condo board about what was going on, but we're continuing to work with the condo board. We've exchanged structural engineer information and such. We will seek approval from DEP regarding the recycling. And then there was a comment, I can't remember if this was county DOT or DPS, but had to do with Nottingham and wanting information on truck maneuvering. And I don't know if, given the current revision, whether there was awareness that in fact we now have no curb cuts, no truck access or anything on Nottingham. We are widening the street significantly. So I'm not sure why we should need to provide any information about truck maneuvering back there.
I could provide some clarification. You want to do?
I mean, it's your comment. Go for it.
So Pat, you are providing some improvement along terminus of Pecan Drive. And also, as you know, this layout has been changed from the layout that we approved under certified site plan, certified preliminary plan. And for that reason, just to make sure operational wise, this is going to work, we would like to see the truck turning.
But Sam, we're widening an existing street. So obviously the widening will make it better, but we're not having any impact at all on this street. We're,
Well,
I mean, we're not putting any vehicles on this street. Everything for us is occurring on Chevy Chase.
that's correct. But if you look at the certified preliminary plan, it shows a wider pavement for the terminus of Nottingham Drive. We are now reducing it.
Well, we're increasing it from the existing.
Correct. But it is different from certified preliminary plan, Pat. And for that reason, we want to make sure we're not going to have any issue with the operation of the vehicle at the terminus. That doesn't mean once we receive the truck turning movement, we're going to ask for improvements. We just would like to see how this functions. That's all.
So Sam, just to remind you, the change from the preliminary plan was known to DPS, DOT, and Park and Planning, and Fire and Rescue. We had a very collaborative effort there, and I'd have to go back and track down all the correspondence, but this was an acquiescence on our part for the input from the neighbors, both on Nottingham and the adjacent condo, where they wanted to save that landscaping and save the sidewalk. This was kind of that agreed upon solution. And I feel like this issue was already solved. So I don't know what else we're going to do. But, as Pat indicated, I agree there's a change, but it's certainly much better in this condition now. In fact, I would think that from a fire and rescue standpoint, they've got to be smiling ear to ear, because you're taking a 19-foot wide road with parking on it and turning it into a standard 28-foot wide road that now has the 20 feet for fire and rescue, and then still allows the parking on the south side there. So all I'm telling you is we can provide you truck turning templates, but I can already tell you they're not going to be anything that you're going to do other than stick in the folder and say, these just don't work at the terminus. It's not a cul-de-sac. There's no room to put in a cul-de-sac. If we go through this exercise, we're going to spend hours getting these exhibits. And I mean, we can all look at it today and it's not going to change anything. So I'm just trying to understand what benefit is it going to be providing these exhibits that show what we already know?
Again, Tim, I mean, by providing these exhibits, it doesn't mean that we're going to ask for improvements. We just want to make sure how the operational is going to function at the end of the road, the terminus. We owe it to ourselves to at least see how these are going to function. Again, we, as you know, as you mentioned, we did discuss this with DOT and us and Park and Planning before. We have gone over what you are proposing currently and are showing on the plan before. But at that point, we did not have the benefit of the truck turning movements. Again, I am not saying we're going to ask for improvements, but we would like to see how they work. That's all. I mean, once you provide that to us, we can discuss it. We could go over them. But again, I really doubt we're going to ask for anything further at the terminus.
Well, let me just say, we can certainly do a truck turning radius, but we're on the record that we're not going to make any additional improvements in here because we're not having any impact on it. So if you need it for your records, we can provide it, but that's sort of where we draw the line.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I think what Tim is saying, it makes sense. I don't know if there's any need for providing something that may not be useful. So why ask for
Um,
it? If DOT
yeah,
has an opinion on this?
yeah, I mean, it's, it's not, it's not to say that we're gonna request for improvements, I think, but, as I mentioned earlier, the certified preliminary plan shows a different layout. We are reducing the amount of pavement. That's not because of the contribution of this particular developer. But previously, we agreed on a wider pavement, and now we are doing it for a narrower pavement. If DOT wants to forego it and decide that they need to see the improvements, I'm fine with that.
Why
The
don't
wa-
we
the-
talk internally and then to discuss it with Tim if necessary?
That would be helpful.
Reach out to me, Sam and Atik, and we can talk through it. I can pull up the old correspondence and stuff. Again, we're kind of agnostic to it. You know, we're trying to meet the public improvements that the board has asked us to provide with that pedestrian connection, at the same time trying to respect the homeowners to keep those trees. Somebody earlier talked, I think Rebecca mentioned how people fall in love with their trees. I think that's what we've got at the end of that Nottingham section, where people have fallen in love with that screening buffer. So we're open to a solution, but I think what you're looking at on the screen is the solution. So give me a shout and we'll chat through it.
And just keep me in the loop so that we're all on the
Sure.
same page.
Thank you.
How old are those trees?
How old?
Mhm.
Whew. Well, I'd have to go back and look through the various Google images, because there are various photos there, and I think some of them may have died at some point and maybe been replaced, but I have to go back through. But they've been there since we've been involved in the project back to 19, and they were fairly significant at that point. So I'd have to say, you know, several years earlier than that, you know, would have been where they are. So I don't know, 2015, 2012.
Oh, so they're
might be
not
safe
that
guess.
old.
Yeah, I
They're
mean,
not
I
like
don't know
30
that these are
years.
like 50-year-old, you know, anything like that. The maintenance leads a little bit to be desired. But again, I know there's that conundrum of these are trees that are in the public right of way. So I don't know if I don't know who maintains those. I know DOT has maintenance, but I don't know that these were DOT
maintain
planted
those.
trees, right? They're just kind of there from, you know, the community, I presume.
Okay, I just want to say we're at time. Is there any real last minute burning question?
Well, per your policy, is there like an automatic follow-up that we could have next week is that the way it works?
So it's not automatic. You have to request it through here. So I'm
May
glad
I
you brought
please
it up.
request?
Yes. Who do you need? Who do
Well,
you need
I
in
think
there?
the tree, primarily this storm drain tree issue. So I
Okay.
don't know if that's, yeah,
Who's that?
DOT,
I mean, internal, but then DOT and who else?
I think
Like,
DPS.
And DPS right away?
and DPS.
Okay.
Okay. And then maybe if Atik and Sam have an opportunity in between to talk about the issue we just discussed. Is there a time on that, Christina?
No, it will be sent out hopefully today to you.
Okay.
But it will be next Tuesday.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Hey,
Okay,
Tim, can
thank
you
you.
say, I need to talk to you about the WML, your other project?
Me?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I'm available. When you get freed up today, give me a call.
All right.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye, everybody.
everybody. I'm Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for 6540 Bradley Boulevard. Your lead reviewer is Marco Fuster, and the purpose of this meeting is for you to ask any questions about the comments that you received last week. And I'm going to ask Marco to kind of highlight any of the major issues that we should discuss and then turn it over to the applicant. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Go ahead, Marco.
All right, good morning. So we have this proposed 2-lot subdivision, corner of Hillmead and Bradley. A few of the highlights of concerns. One is still some question on the established building line, whereas DPS zoning confirmed that if the existing house had been on septic, once it's demolished, the exemption from the EBL would go away with the demolition of that house. However, if the existing neighboring houses in the EBL study area had been on septic, as to which lots in the study area had been on septic. Then this particular tree here, which would be saved by the plan, is completely dead today. I'd like to have the driveway relocated to go through this area, which would save a larger swath of the existing forest setting. Then received some community letters. They came in the mail. I have hard copies I would have provided. I'll get them scanned and sent to your team. But they were from the resident in the back, and they most of the concerns are with excessive tree clearing and disturbance. Then lastly, the Associated Forest Conservation Plan was just received for review a few days ago, so we'll get detailed comments on that too shortly. And those are the highlights.
Okay, the applicant on?
Yes, hi, this is Jeff Lewis with Site Solutions. Morning.
Good morning.
Just, I guess, a quick comment regarding the EBLs. Almost this entire neighborhood predated public sewer. So the adjacent lots along Bradley Boulevard were on septic at one point in time. We'll get the confirmations from DPS well and septic. I did speak with them when we went through the concept plan, and they did state that those lots were on septic at one point in time, which is the reason why, which is common with these lots being as deep as they were for the zoning that they're in. Yeah, there were a lot of comments. It seemed I saw a lot of comments regarding trees. We will get an arborist on board to take a look at that and come up with some recommendations for preservation of the trees that obviously we can save. Did have a question regarding the sidewalk. I saw there's some comments regarding adding sidewalk to both frontages in addition to the bike lane. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think these are repeated from the concept plan, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have. This is Katie Mancrini. I did the for the planning department.
And this is just, I guess, a general regulation comment or question. As far as de minimis for providing sidewalks, it said that this does not meet that. I mean, what is the criteria for meeting that de minimis?
Sure, I'd be happy to send you the policy that references. It's a relatively new one that the planning board made a decision about, I think in 2021, where they basically said, for projects of a certain size, they recognize, certain size and limited density. They did see that the cost of the sidewalk would be better spent through a fee in lieu rather than construction. But when I plugged in the features that you guys have here, the 2 frontages and the 2 lots that you're creating, you didn't meet that cap. So. But
Okay.
yeah, I'll put a note here to send you that policy.
Yeah, I'd like to take a look at that. I mean, obviously, sidewalk is always a question on some of these projects, especially when you looked at there is no sidewalk pretty much anywhere in the vicinity on Bradley or Hillmead for that matter. And it does or will have an impact on the trees that are in that area. And, we were trying to make an effort. Obviously, from the concept plan, there was the concern about trying to provide some tree canopy, particularly along Bradley Boulevard, and that will impact that. So that's that's one of the concerns we had.
No, I hear you on that. We have a lot of competing values with these types of administrative subdivisions. What I would suggest to you is a couple of things. If there is the ability to have a sidewalk kind of meander around established healthy trees, we're open to that. It doesn't have to be a perfect straight line. As long as it meets the ADA requirements, we can sign off on that. But if there's really no other way right now, their take on this, the guide, the upcoming pedestrian master plan, we need to provide sidewalk next to something that I would highlight here that I think I also highlighted in my comments is that we do have an established bus stop here at the corner. And so this sidewalk wouldn't truly be to nowhere. It actually, there is a public destination that's just within the right of way of your property. So.
Okay, I guess we'll take a look at that.
Sure.
Jeff, real quick, I saw that Melissa on the line raised her hand. She probably has some follow-up about the EBO.
Okay.
Yeah, just real quick, because EBL is usually a statement or plan submitted by the civil engineer at the time of permitting. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Melissa Gutos with Zoning Plan Review. So that statement or EBL plan is part of the new house review that we do for building permits. At that time, we would be looking for the EBL because these are newly created lots. If you would say that you were just applying to demo the existing house, keep the lot that is already recorded in the land records, then yes, that exclusion would apply in this case for EBL. We would not look for EBL. We would look for the statement that says this lot was served by well and septic, and the EBL does not apply. In this case, we would need an EBL plan for both new houses as part of the review of the new houses. Does that clarify it?
It does, but if the adjacent lots were on septic at some point in time, that would exclude those lots from the calculation for those lots.
Correct. So then you would say that EBL does not apply if you are using a method where the adjacent house could not be used for the EBL.
Okay.
But you would have to have that EBL planner statement certified by the professional.
Gotcha.
So it would be your choice what method to use for the corner lot. Most times the existing house is used for the EBL of one of the new houses, but it can only be used once. So if that existing house was not approved by variance and it meets the current setback required in the R200 zone, then you would use that for one of the houses.
Right.
And then the other one, you would go with the minimum in the zone.
Okay.
So we haven't reviewed like the exact method that you're going to use for EBL. It's provided at the time of the permit.
Right.
But you're right that there might be a method that you use and that the professional agrees with that you would provide that would not, if you're the professional, excuse me, but yeah, if you do provide that plan and you say why the EBL does not apply for that particular proposed house, then that's fine. But the EBL overall, the regulation does apply. So we would need to see the EBL planner statement stamped or sealed by the licensed professional.
Yeah, I'll probably provide something with resubmittal just because it is a comment. It does have impact or could have impact. And based on the research we've done so far, that almost all these lots, I think, were at one point in time on septic. So, but
Okay,
yeah, we'll
sounds
put
good.
something
Thank
together.
you. I'm glad
Mhm.
that we
Thank
could
you.
clarify that.
Just trying to see if there was anything. As far as the current setbacks that we're showing, or the way the houses are set back, there was, even though if we weren't required to meet EBL requirements about setting houses back. I mean, there's adjacent lots on Bradley Boulevard are about 60 feet deeper than this property. So it's going to be difficult to set them back, obviously, to meet the frontage of where the existing houses are adjacent. I mean, we were trying to make as much front yard available that we could provide canopy preservation out front. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we kind of cited them where we did. And
the other question about the EBL, if you go half a block north on Bradley Boulevard, you'll see houses are less than 20 feet away from the street. And that's just because there's a street that's parallel that is the entrance, that's the front of the house. And so the question is, how would you apply the EBL if the next door neighbors are set back, but the house right next to it, literally 2 houses over, is within 20, 30 feet of the street, not even?
So there's a method where you're looking at the houses within 300 feet of the side setback of the proposed lot. So the lot you're referring to may or may not be within the study area.
Yeah, it should be.
Jeff would take care of that in the exhibit that he's going to prepare.
Thanks. And I just wanted to also make sure, I mean, we were neighbors with these families for 11 years plus. And, I mean, if there are issues about the trees, I mean, that was one of the things we wanted to do, was maintain as much of the trees. And I think especially on Hillmead, because it's such a slope, talking to Jeff, it's going to really cause, regrading and basically destruction of almost all the trees on that side in order to do the sidewalk. And that's why I think we came back after the initial, plan discussion to ask for an exemption, at least for the Hillmead, because there's, on the entire street of Hillmead, when we checked and drove up and down, we didn't see a single sidewalk. And I think that would be, obviously helpful and goodwill for the one neighbor behind that had some concerns about the trees versus Bradley Boulevard. And, appreciate the suggestion of moving the driveway. We'd flip whatever house plan there is there to where the dead tree is to save more. But I'm just, I understand the competing demands. I understand the policy priority to try to have more sidewalks and more walkable neighborhoods. I just, wonder if there's any way to revisit or reconsider. And it's not even an expense that potentially, we would incur. We would obviously pass it on as we do the development of it. But I just want to kind of raise that for if there's a way to try to appease, neighbors and be a good neighbor and try to maintain more of it. I just don't know how with that grade, and talking with Jeff, we'd be able to save some of those trees if we had to put the sidewalk in.
Yeah.
So,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Katie.
Rebecca. Oh, I was just going to just chime in, and I know I sound like I'm broken record. This is Katie again. This is a big priority for the planning board. And so at our level during our review, this is the requirement that you will construct it and you will show it on your plans. Later, when you pull a building permit, you can appeal to DPS to see if you can get that sidewalk waived, but that is not something that we can do during this process. And it's not something that the board would be able to do for you either.
Okay,
That's not our authority. Yeah.
Okay. And I would just like to add that there was actually a Fox 5 was talking about pedestrian safety, pedestrian plan that's going forward now. And that is one of the things we are looking at. And we really want sidewalks to be built, even if there's nothing in the area. So.
Okay. I mean, is there any other critical issues on your end that that we're kind of missing up front here?
Did we talk about truncation?
No, I don't think we didn't talk about it in this meeting. Billy, did you put
Showing
that
a
in your
rounded-
comments?
Yeah, you're showing a rounded curve. It's supposed to be 25 feet back at the intersection with the straight line.
Oh, for the truncation at the intersection there for the right of way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then
Um,
the other thing, I don't know, did we talk about the bus stop, the bus facility improvements along that corner should be in right away as well?
Could we put them in an easement, perpetual easement?
Maybe, potentially, but we need to see something else other than it shouldn't be on private property because you don't want to maintain that.
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean, it's already partially on the private property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that truncation, that radius return there on the property almost meets that truncation requirement. I'd have to do a little, because it is a pretty generous radius going back through there.
Yeah, we just do the standard. I think that's an old style. We just do the standard.
Right. Yeah, 25 foot back from the corners. But yeah, we can take a look at that to see where that stands.
So otherwise, I think the comments address everything else, but the one new piece of information, whereas the letters that came in recently would likely make it such that the project would have to go to the planning board, even if it's administrative. However, if you can perhaps address the concerns by using, say, retaining walls or other methods, then potentially, we could reach out to the author of the letters, and if the concerns are addressed, then it wouldn't necessarily have to go to the board at that point. But we'd have to see how things play out.
Hey, you'll make those letters available to us?
Yeah, I could do that today.
Okay, all right, great.
Yeah, this is Mark Etheridge real quick with Water Resources. If it does go to the board, then we will have to have an approved stormwater concept before it goes to the board. And that has not been submitted yet. So that will involve a little more time. Just to throw that out there.
Yeah. No, the concept's been submitted, Mark.
Do we have it? I couldn't find it in the system. So if it's in there, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
I think for now we're good. Obviously, if we have some questions on individual concerns, we can contact the reviewer directly and work things out.
Okay, sounds good. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you very much for your time.
I'm Christina Sorrento. I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Calverton. Your lead reviewer is Philip Estes. He is pulling up the plans right now to share with everybody. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions based upon the comments that you received last week. I'll ask Philip to kind of go through any of the major issues we should discuss and then turn it over to the applicant. And this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. So Philip, whenever you are ready, you can take it away.
Just 1 second here.
Sure, no problem. There we go.
We are. There we go. Okay, good morning, everyone. As Christina mentioned, this is the Calverton Preliminary Plan Amendment application. The applicant's team has received all other agency and planning department comments. For this meeting, we want to make sure that we discuss some of the major issues that have been identified. These include the lotting and the layout, urban design comments, the environmental issues that were raised concerning hydrology, topology, and the flow of stormwater towards the properties towards the north, the stormwater management facilities themselves, access driveways and minimizing paving, preservation of the forest area, and other agency comments. So let me zoom in here a bit. So as I briefly mentioned, we've identified some environmental issues concerning the topography and the hydrology of the site, particularly towards the northern and northeast corner of the property, and the flow of stormwater in that direction. Also, the generally kind of the rear third to half of the property contains forest. So we would like to discuss those issues. And Catherine, I think, Catherine is on the line, and Catherine can add some detail to the environmental comments.
Yes, good morning. This is Catherine Nelson. There is some natural drainage that goes diagonally across the property. So our concern is where that flow is coming from. Is some of it coming from the road? Is it or the storm drain system? Also, where does that flow go at this time? Where is it picked up by the storm drain system? There's a high quality forest in the rear of the property. It's important that all planning and zoning options be utilized to preserve that forest rather than just remove the entire thing. It appears that the most important area would be to in that swale area to the northeast, and trading a stormwater system for a forest is not an acceptable trade-off environmentally.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. And then I want to display a couple of the options that were presented. So due to the on-site environmental conditions, we've proposed a couple of options. Option one, and these are in response to preserving as much of that forest area as possible, and also trying to stay out of the rear portion of the property, particularly the north eastern corner in that flow. So this option one shows the existing house to remain, and it would provide one additional lot towards the rear with a consolidated shared driveway. And option two shows a 3-lot subdivision with the same house in the back in the similar configuration as option one. But in option two, the existing residence would be removed, providing an opportunity for 2 lots towards the roadway with a shared driveway, which would minimize paving and impervious surfaces. So those are the 2 options we also would like to present and discuss. And I think that covers our comments. We could turn over the applicant, or we could also provide other agency comments. Because I think there were some concerns from fire access and stormwater management as well.
Well, I think I'll step in if you don't mind.
Sure.
Dave McKee, Benning and Associates. We certainly looked it over the comments. Mr. Shi, the owner, is on the line here as well, and we talked about it. And you know, given all the comments, I think at this point we're strongly looking at pivoting to the option that you have on the screen right now. So, okay. You know, as far as fire department and some of the other things, you know, we'll have to update as we modify the plan and to address those comments. But you know, originally Mr. Shi was thinking we'd really like to save the house that's there now, but 3 lots is important to him for other reasons. So I think at this point, we understand, you know, some of the things that you brought up there, and we'll be looking to make this plan that you've got in front of us work. So that's our plan as our next step, to get this back to you as quickly as possible with some updates to show you how it looks like it might come together. I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, the EBL is a factor here. So with those front lots, 2 new houses there, we'll have to take a good look at that and make sure that those placements are working with what the zoning requires for EBL. But other than that, I think we can work on this. And
Dave, keep in mind with the EBL, you know, you have to do the EBL, but then also keep in mind the flag lot provisions. You need that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that might end up maybe pushing that house that's in the back a little bit further back, but still keeping it on that high side. That's what I'm perceiving. But you know, we'll work out those details and get back to you on that. Catherine brought up the inlet, and I saw her comment. I wasn't really sure where that was coming from, but now I understand what she was thinking about there. And I pulled up while she was talking a storm drain website, DOT's storm drain site, which I could share if I'm able to, or maybe I don't need to. But that inlet actually routes around to the east in Fairland, and then drains to the north through another property. So, you know, that it doesn't drain, that drainage that's coming to that inlet doesn't drain through our property. Obviously the surface flow that we have, given the topography does, but there's nothing else that's coming that way. So I'll share that at some point to address that concern.
David, if you have that on the screen, feel free to share your screen with us.
Okay, let me see if I can do that. Yeah. There we go. So this is our property here, and there's the inlet that we were talking about. So there's a lot of drainage coming down Fairlawn Road to this inlet here. But apparently that's just the starting point of a system that works its way around and then heads back down, you know, to the north there. So hopefully, Catherine, that would answer what you were thinking about there.
Yeah, that really helps. Our GIS layer doesn't include this portion. It only picks it up to the far north.
Yeah, so I'll include that as an exhibit when we submit back to you.
Yes.
Just so we have that as part of the record there.
Thanks, that's helpful.
And let's see, a couple other things. Maybe I don't know if Mr. Whalen is on the line, but he mentioned removing the cross section that we have on the plan, the standard section. And I didn't know if there was another alternative that we should show, or just kind of lay out what's already out there. I mean, the road's been improved fairly recently, so there's a lot of things out there that we show on the plan.
Yeah,
like
so
and all that.
this is Rebecca from DOT. I'm not sure exactly what was shown. Yeah, we don't use those standards anymore. The depth and the, you know, we use that, but the rest of that is not, you rely on complete streets.
Yeah, okay.
So that's basically what it was.
Okay, that's what I figured. I just wanted to confirm that. And Complete Streets doesn't provide a standard section, so we have to, what do we just assess
You
what's
look at
out there?
complete streets based on the classification.
Yep.
And I think Billy's out this week, but
Okay.
Andrew Bossy usually puts together a complete street section. So he should just ask him to share that with you.
Okay, good.
But usually, in general, when we're talking about complete streets, you just build it yourself. And then you put it together based on what's in complete streets. I don't think that I'm not sure if we're coming out with those details anymore.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other?
Philip, yeah.
That's it? Any other comments, questions from anyone else on the line? All right.
Philip, can you mention about the community correspondence?
Oh, yes. Just as Sandra mentioned, and I did forward you a copy of that, David, was a letter we received from a neighbor to the north objecting to the project due to flooding issues they have on their property.
Right.
So for the application, even though this would be an administrative, we're going to request a stormwater management concept for the planning board to consider.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we have submitted that, and I know they have that letter as well, and we have that letter, so we'll address that.
You can, I don't know if it's flooding from is it flooding from the street?
Well, they're downhill. I mean, they're downhill of Fairland, and there's drainage heading in their direction. They're just in a bad, they're in a bad circumstance, I think.
So I think that some of the layout revisions that we are suggesting, David, will help improve that situation with the neighbor. I think that the layout that we were showing, both of them protect the forest and the existing slopes on that corner of the property, which should also help with any flooding issues that they're having.
That will help, and then certainly, we'll be providing on-site things to manage the water. So
exactly. So we tried to use the building footprints that you're showing us here on this drawing for the proposed units. But obviously, if the units are smaller, that will help. The more we can limit the limits or reduce the limits of disturbance, the better. To mitigate these issues.
Okay, we'll look at that. I mean, they're not big. 50 by 40 is a pretty standard size, but we'll take a look at that too.
Yep.
All righty. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Heritage Emery Grove right-of-way. Your lead is Richard Brockmeyer, but Matt Folden is standing in for him today. And welcome.
Hi.
So I guess we don't really have a plan up or anything, but
Oh, yeah, sorry. I don't know that we need a plan.
okay, we could chat amongst ourselves about any questions you might have.
Yeah, and I can just kick off. Good morning, Matt Folden. I know we've spoken on the phone, met virtually, so nice to see you.
Good morning, I'm
Gordon. Nice to see
Gordon
you.
Woodward with Gordon and Reese, and then I'm Jay Shepard with HOC.
Yep, nice to put,
See you again.
names to faces.
Exactly.
So as Christina said, and I'll just recap here since everything is being recorded and broadcast and everything, this concept plan was submitted at staff's request associated with your abandonment petition. And I just want to thank you for putting together the materials because it answered a lot of questions that we had about the context of the outstanding development, rather the kind of forthcoming and anticipated development, about the utilities, about the cross sections, about the ability to get in pedestrian and bike facilities along the side of the road. So that information gave us what we needed in order to make a recommendation with the abandonment petition. I understand that you're going to start reinitiating that process with DOT.
Yes, we expect to, possibly later today or within the next couple of days.
Great. So again, I just want to thank you for that. You got our comments last week. I think they were pretty light and just acknowledging most of what I said. We have representatives on the line. I know you have some questions for WSSC, and I saw that they didn't provide any specific comments. So now would be a great time to coordinate with them or ask us any questions.
Okay. I guess the primary thing was we wanted to just confirm that now was the appropriate time to reinitiate the abandonment process.
Yeah. From my perspective, it is, and I think that would be a good question directed to Tiara McCrae at MCDOT, just since she handles the overall abandonment petition process. We're a commenting agency, but we're certainly looking at capacity and looking at the overall master plan recommendations and everything.
Right.
So one thing that I just wanted to say, since everything's being recorded, we didn't comment on any of the, the forthcoming development, but it was helpful to see in context.
Okay.
So
good. Yeah, and I did speak with Ms. McCrae, and I understand that she's comfortable moving forward now as long as the commenting agencies are comfortable moving forward now.
Yep. And so that, I've covered for park and planning, Sam's with DPS right away.
Right. We defer to DOT, and they are online in case you have any question about their comments.
Yeah, this is Deepak here with DOT. Yes, we support the abandonment, so you have to coordinate with Tiara on that. We have been coordinating with you guys the past 1 year, I guess. So yeah, we are comfortable moving forward, and you will have to coordinate with Tiara on that.
Great. The other question then that I have really is for WSSC. Now, we did receive some comments from WSSC. It wasn't part of the comment package that we got from you all. And the comments I thought were fairly straightforward and pretty easy for us to react to, which we will do and respond to. There was one though that I wanted to bring up with, I guess, with you all and the representative for WSSC here. One of the comments made the point that they expect that they will need easements. There's no WSSC above ground infrastructure within the abandonment area, but there is a sewer line and a water line that run underneath the abandonment area, and they indicated that we would need to start the easement process. And I guess my question was, what we typically would not provide easements at this point, but we would do it in connection with replatting the area at the time of site plan approval, at which point, we would take care of all the necessary easements for utilities. And I just want to make sure that WSSC is comfortable with that.
Karim? She's on.
Sorry. Yes, I think we okay. But remember, like to get permit, you need to have the easement need to be executed and recorded.
I'm sorry, I think you broke up a little on me.
Corinne.
Can you repeat that, Corinne?
Let me. For us, it's okay, but remember that you need our easement recorded before to get a permit.
Okay. Okay, and we could have, I guess, recorded easements at the time we replat when we come through site plan approval. It sounds like you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just procedurally, one thing that you might want to talk to Tiara about is conditioning the abandonment on the provision of necessary easements.
Okay.
And maybe coordinating with WSSC about the exact dimensions and limits, just so you know exactly what you're working with.
Okay. Okay. Just take a note. Okay, so I guess what we could do then is we'll restart the abandonment process, and then we'll just let the easement process will kind of move in parallel with that as we go forward.
I think that's what I understood, Kareem.
Yes.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Do any of the other agencies on the line have comments that they want to highlight?
Okay. Ms. Corinne, can I get your last name just for my notes?
Carpio, Carpio.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Anything else?
I don't have anything personally.
Yeah, nothing from me.
Appreciate
Okay.
your guys' time and review the office.
Likewise, appreciate all the materials. It's really helpful.
Good.
So.
All right, well, we'll address the outstanding comments. We'll circle back with WSSC in particular. We'll refile the abandonment request and I guess start the process with regard to easements, how they're going to be coordinated with the site development.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.